As the count went deeper into the night with no results, the campaigns began to pack it up and move on.
So listen, it is too close to call, so I'm just going to tell you what I do know. You won!
Iowa's Democratic Party leaders say it wasn't a hack or an intrusion, but they're concerned about quality checks and inconsistencies. Some blaming a new app designed to help the reporting.
I want to make sure they're very careful in their deliberations. And indications are, from our indications, it's going to be close.
Of course I'm concerned.
Officials are now hand counting the results. The disaster further muddying up a hotly contested primary season. Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Pete Buttigieg had all been hoping to break out of the pack with a win in the Hawkeye state. CBN correspondent Abigail Robertson is in Iowa with more on the candidates and their future.
With uncertainty in the air as candidates addressed their supporters Monday night, each took advantage of the situation to celebrate like they were the winner.
By all indications, we are going on to New Hampshire victorious.
Sanders supporters are hopeful this is finally his year.
I feel like Bernie is really going to be that answer that we need. I think he's the only one viable that can go against Trump right now.
While Warren caucus goers also had some pep in their step.
I'm so excited. I'm so thrilled.
Biden didn't quite make it as a viable candidate at every precinct.
I think that overall Biden does have the support we need. A lot of candidates just have confidence that he's still going to do well, and so some Iowans aren't showing up for him, but I think ultimately he will do well.
But his supporters tried their best to secure more votes.
I'm getting text messages to come over to Bernie as we speak.
While many Democrat voters tell CBN News it's time for some new leaders.
I feel that it's time for maybe getting some younger people with some different ideas.
The majority stands ready to support whoever wins the nomination.
I will be behind whoever the candidate will be.
But no matter whom that is, Donald Trump Jr. tells CBN News none of the candidates are a match for his dad.
The reality, if I look at what I believe to be the two front runners right now, whether it's Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders, I'm like, well, one's a communist, that's great, I can work with that. The other, honestly, can't remember what state he's in 50% of the time.
Since 2000, each Democratic candidate who's won the Iowa caucus has gone on to win the party's nomination. Given the unusually crowded primary field, many campaigns are hopeful that 2020 marks an end of that streak. Reporting from Iowa, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Well, I personally had a lot of fun in Iowa in the old days. Bob Dole won the state, but I got credit. I beat a sitting vice president who had won against Ronald Reagan, and so the headlines were Robertson burns Bush. So, we had our fun, but when it was all said and done, more people in Iowa turned out for the high school basketball playoffs than turned out for those caucuses. Out of 3 million people, there are a little over 100,000. I mean, it's hardly representative. Well, joining us now from Washington to talk about the debacle in Iowa and everything happening in Washington is CBN chief political analyst David Brody. David, this is a black eye for the Democrats in Iowa. Do you think it's going to have any effect on the race?
Oh, I don't even know where to begin, Pat. Well, yeah, I think it is going to have an effect on the race right away, and here's why. Bernie Sanders was poised for a pretty good night in Iowa, but well, we don't just know that right now because we have 0.0% of the results in, and so he can't have his big victory. It does help Joe Biden because it does appear with some of those polls, those entrance and exit polls coming out of Iowa, that Biden probably wasn't having as great of a night in Iowa. So at least he moves on to New Hampshire without any potential stain in Iowa. So I think you're seeing some tangible results. But I got to tell you, this Iowa caucus, Pat, it's been a mess. I mean, you know the deal. 2012, let's just go back, 8 years ago, we had Mitt Romney declare the winner, and then whoops, our bad. 2 weeks later, they say, actually, no, Rick Santorum won the caucus. And, of course, that torpedoed his chances because he had no momentum coming out of Iowa because he wasn't declared the winner at that point. Then 2016, just 4 years ago, Democrats also had problems. A lot of voter irregularities, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton sniping at each other. And now we have this. The big winner last night, quite frankly, was Donald Trump. I mean, he won not only the Republican caucus in Iowa, but in a way, he kind of won the Democratic caucus caucus as well, because this thing has just been a big black eye for Democrats.
David, going on to the impeachment thing, do you think that impeachment is going to hurt some of those House Democrats that are voting for impeachment?
Well, I think that's the game in town, Pat. Look, 31 districts that Trump won in 2016, and these are 31 districts that Democrats have congressional seats in. They basically are the representative from that district. So those are the 31 key House races that we'll be looking at in 2020. And on impeachment specifically, you had 29 of the 31. You can make an argument that 28 of the 31, but 28 of the 31 voted for impeachment in Trump-backed districts. That could be a big problem for Democrats going forward.
Now that we're at the State of the Union tonight, the president has been told, stay off impeachment, let's stick to the economy. You think he's going to do that?
Yeah, my sense is he probably will. Look, I give this a 95% success rate, and what I mean by that is, look, there's always the 5% I'm going off prompter, but typically on the State of the Union, at least in the last couple that he's done, he has stayed on prompter. He's gotten positive reviews. If you think about it, it's shaping up to be a pretty good week for this president. The Iowa debacle with the Democrats, the State of the Union, which will be the most watched speech he gives all year, and he usually does pretty well. And then he'll be acquitted in the Senate regarding impeachment on Wednesday. So a pretty good trifecta there for the president. I have to tell you, though, I'll be later on this afternoon, I'll be at the network anchor luncheon where the president will host a few media members to talk more about the State of the Union. It's all off the record. We'll have a better sense of it there. But I will tell you that the theme is going to be this great American comeback. He'll talk about the economy. And yes, he'll talk a lot about socialism and what that can mean for this country going forward.
One thing that it looks like in this impeachment, Adam's Schiff was lying through his teeth. And do you think Lindsey Graham of the Judiciary Committee is going to open some hearings? Who is the whistleblower? What happened to the FBI? What was the Justice Department doing, et cetera? You think that's going to happen?
Well, I think it's 50-50. I mean, I think there's part of the Republican Party who just wants all of this to be over with. The president, though, is, as you might imagine, he has a list. And he's pretty good friends with Lindsey Graham. So you can make the argument that that list, if you will, of people that he's got a few problems with going forward might resurface. But I think at this point, look, I think all of the oxygen is going to be sucked up in 2020 with all the campaigning going on. And in this Trump White House, it's just one thing after another. So Adam Schiff today and who's next tomorrow? I mean, it's one of those things. So I have a feeling that's just going to get drowned out. Should it get drowned out? No. Do I think it will? I think everybody's ready to move on here, Pat.
Too early to select a winner for 2020? You think he's going to take he's running against a, quote, communist? What do you think?
Well, I have to tell you, if it's Bernie Sanders, then Christmas has come early for the Trump campaign. I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, look, Bernie's problem beyond socialism and the train to Leningrad that we've talked about and honeymooning in Russia, look it up. The problem here for Bernie is that he's relying on younger voters. Younger voters are not as reliable as we know those 55 and older voters are. And so that's going to be a problem beyond all of the socialism talk. There's a treasure, Pat, I mean, there's a treasure trove of stuff on Bernie. That would be a big deal. But look, let's be honest with Bernie here. If he wins Iowa, and I don't know when we're going to find out the Iowa results, maybe before my daughter's high school graduation in June at some point, and then you have New Hampshire. I mean, Bernie is leading in New Hampshire as well. There have been a couple polls that say Biden and Bernie are pretty close, but there's one poll, actually a pretty reputable poll, that shows Bernie ahead by 15 points. I mean, Bernie could do the Iowa, New Hampshire. He's strong in Nevada as well. And then South Carolina becomes a crapshoot at that point. I mean, even though that's Biden's fail-safe, at that point, all bets are off. So this could actually be Bernie's year. And, hold on. Excedrin time.